Hello, my name is John Mayer, and I'm the Executive Director of CALI, the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction. The video you are about to watch is from the annual CALI conference held at the University of Michigan School of Law in Ann Arbor, Michigan on June 4th and 5th, 2026. Most U.S. law schools are members of CALI. CALI publishes over 1,400 interactive tutorials that teach the law to law students. Faculty can also use LessonLink to create formative assessments using CALI lessons. CALI publishes casebooks by paying law faculty to write and review books that can be adopted in many courses in law school. These books are free to download from our website, or print versions can be purchased at near cost. You can download the PDFs or even the Microsoft Word versions of most of our books and add your own commentary before distributing to your students. $300 casebooks are a thing of the past, and adopting one book from CALI saves you more than your entire institutional membership. If you would like to learn more, email me at jmayer@cali.org. I would be happy to visit or zoom into your school to talk about CALI.
Hello, everybody. My name is John Mayer. I'm the Executive Director of CALI. I wanted to give you a little bit of overview. The majority of this presentation will be by our guests, Erik and Joanne, who are up in Canada, but we've allowed them, given them temporary visas to come through on Zoom to talk. But I wanted to give you a little bit of overview about A2J Author to sort of set some of the context. A2J Author is a CALI project that has a very long history. It actually started in the year 2000. And the first version of it was released in 2005. It's gone through a couple of iterations since then. It was written in Flash ActionScript originally. Now it's a JavaScript single-page web app. It's open source, so and it has a GitHub repo where you can go learn a whole lot more about it. It was basically designed to allow non-technical legal aid attorneys or court staff to automate court forms for self-representing litigants. So it has sort of an analog with CALI Author, which was designed to let non-technical faculty automate learning paths for law students, all right? In the 20 years or so of its existence, it's been used by dozens of legal aids in courts, maybe over 100. I haven't done a count of that, but they've over the years we've automated or helped them automate over 1,000 forms. So many of that are still being used today. About 500,000 times a year, a self-represented litigant will find themselves in front of A2J Author filling out a form for divorce, a simplified divorce usually, child custody forms, criminal expungements, eviction defense letters, domestic violence, temporary restraining orders, intake to legal aid or to a program. It's basically an expert system builder, which is a form of AI, I will remind everybody, just not generative AI. It's also used by, why would CALI, which is about legal education, be interested in this? Well, it's also used by, or has been used by dozens of law schools as a teaching tool. Students have worked with legal aid programs or with courts, or have just done internal projects to automate forms as a way to introduce them to the idea of practice automation or document automation. Interestingly, we found that students aren't the best to automate court forms because they have no experience in dealing with the problems, but they're good to put at the elbow of non-technical judges or court staff to help them out, right? We offer free hosting for people who want to create guided interviews at a2j.org, but the website where all the authoring takes place is at a2jauthor.org. And there are exercises there for students, self-paced exercises, and like sample automation projects that they can complete in an hour or two all by themselves, and lots of people have used that. But what about AI being integrated into such a thing? Well, that's what we're here to talk about, and that's where our good friends at CLEO the Canadian Legal Education of Ontario. Did I get that right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Eric.
Community Legal Education Ontario.
Yeah. All right. I did get all the words right. They didn't flow as well as they do from you. And so I'm going to hand the mic and the screen over to Erik and Joanne and have them tell the story of AI in action, chatbots, and legal narratives.
Thanks a lot, John, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to come and share with you a little bit about CLEO's guided pathways, A2J guided interviews, and our AI work. My name is Erik Bornmann. I'm the program director of Guided Pathways, and I'm joined by Joanne Lu, my colleague, who's an AI consultant at CLEO. For those unfamiliar with CLEO, our work focuses on providing information to people who face individual and systemic barriers to accessing the justice system. So our work includes legal resources and publications, a public legal information website, Steps to Justice, the guided pathways, more on that in a second, and CLEO Connect resources for trusted intermediaries, community helpers. So today we're talking about the guided pathways, which are document assembly tools, decision tree technology, and these have been created with CALI's A2J author system. So specifically, CLEO is exploring how to integrate generative AI functionality before and after our guided pathways. So our AI work essentially has two core parts: one, an AI chatbot, and two, an AI narrative assistant. But to put our AI work in context, I'd like to share a little bit about the A2J guided interviews, what we call our guided pathways, because they are at the foundation of our AI work. So the pathways are direct to public legal applications, and they help self-represented Ontarians and those with limited representation learn about their legal rights, fill out forms and documents, and identify next steps. These decision trees are comprised of simple questions presented one at a time, and they use information entered by the user to produce the applicable forms and documents along with personalized tip sheets and instructions. Now, embedded throughout is public legal information, helping people answer each question and understand the implications of their answer. And CLEO has over 100 of these guided pathways or use cases grouped together in associated collections, and with more on the way. To give a sense of scale, since we launched the Pathways program in 2018, we've seen a steady growth. Today, we have over 7,000 users a month. And alongside this growth, we've remained committed to ongoing and expanded evaluation. And this evaluation starts with have we met our objective in building these decision tree tools? And of course, how you build an A2J guided interview matters a lot. And our pathways are built around four principles: ease of use, including reducing task complexity, plain language, rigorous testing for accuracy and reliability, building for a diversity of users, including trusted helpers, strong privacy security, and long-term sustainability. So how are we doing? Again, no AI in the picture yet. We found that A2J guided interviews, decision tree technology, actually helps quite a lot. And we know this from our evaluation. We track use, we ask for user feedback. We also collect feedback from frontline workers. We conduct periodic spot audits to check quality assurance. And we work with scholars at universities for independent research validation. And a lot of our AI work that we're about to share with you stems from the research that we have done into the efficacy of the guided pathways decision tree tools. So for instance, there's an independent University of Ottawa Western study that included a randomized control trial using students on usability. The results are published in a peer-reviewed journal noted here. And essentially, it showed that the A2J guided interviews, our pathways, significantly reduced task complexity related to the completion of court forms, delivering on that ease of use goal. Sort of similarly, in partnership with McGill University, we're currently running a randomized control trial with actual users to evaluate the quality of pathway output. So these are the court forms produced. So basically, participants are recruited through CLEO's Guided Pathways platform and randomly assigned into one of two study groups. Control condition, which involves participants completing the form using a standard fillable PDF and anything they can find online, except the pathways. They can even use LLMs. And then there's an experimental or treatment group in which the participants use the guided pathways. And I should say every participant who completes the study gets 2 hours of free legal services paid for by CLEO. So everyone is hopefully in a better position for participating in the study. So the study's ongoing, but several early observations stand out. So first, A2J guided interviews improve form quality even more than we initially thought, and it's not even close. So almost all the non-pathway completed forms were critically flawed, while in comparison, all the forms, and this was for a divorce procedure, all the forms produced by the pathways were fileable, and none were found to include information that was prejudicial to the applicants. And finally, the step-by-step guidance of the decision tree technology really helped users identify and provide the information they need to complete the form. So bottom line is that A2J guided interviews, our pathways substantially improve the completeness and quality of the court forms outputted. And it's this foundation that we wanted to enhance using AI. And this work, it's funded by the Law Foundation of Ontario, has started, and we're in year 2, and we're working with McGill and the Montreal Cyber Justice Lab on evaluation, and a BC AI company, Tango Work, on development and AI strategy. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joanne to talk about the first part of that work.
Thanks, Eric. Hey, everyone. My name is Joanne, and I'll be talking about how we're using Gen AI to enhance CLEO's guided pathways. So to start off with the motivation for this, in our AI journey, we first looked at places where we thought AI could enhance our guided pathways program, and we found that in the realm of user support, there was a lot of opportunity. Users of our guided pathways today frequently hit a lot of roadblocks, including account issues. They might be confused with the legal process. They also may have critical legal knowledge gaps. Today, the only solution for users is to reach out to our support team by email. And for someone who needs urgent legal assistance, that's a barrier to justice. It also creates a lot of operational strain on the guided pathways staff team who are handling user support inquiries as opposed to working on high value work. So in terms of understanding the broader problem space, we drilled down into 2 types of users. We basically had guided pathways users, and these are the folks who are using our guided pathways program, as well as our guided pathways staff team who are handling the user support inquiries. Our guided pathways staff team receives questions in 3 areas today. These are tech support questions, such as questions around locked accounts, form viewing questions, and form editing questions. Guided pathways questions, so specific things about functions such as save and resume, what to do next, or if there's any bugs in the pathway. We also receive a lot of legal questions, and these can span any area of law, including family law are the most popular ones, housing, as well as small claims. Sorry. Many of the legal questions asked to our support team are routinely answered by referring users to our Steps to Justice team. Steps to Justice is CLEO's fast public legal information website. It contains legal resources across 17 major areas of law in Ontario. Our website also contains information on common legal questions. We have around 1,600 or so question and answer modules, and all of these are compacted into very readable, accessible articles for users to understand. Our Steps to Justice website also links people to forms, checklists, tools, glossaries, and additional resources that help them access services across Ontario. So in terms of thinking of the opportunities that existed, we thought about integrating a 24/7 self-service AI chatbot to address all of these user needs. So the core 4 tenets that we are discussing here are that the chatbot would provide timely tech support, so real-time troubleshooting at all points of a user's guided pathways journey. This means before using a guided pathway, during a guided pathway, and after a guided pathway session. It also means being able to do automated triaging. So for a lot of the questions, they come in a very repetitive nature, and so a lot of this can be handled by the chatbot with only very important cases escalated to the support team. In terms of the site navigation, Steps to Justice has a wealth of information, so we envision using the chatbot as a tool also to direct visitors to the right information at the right time, whether that's a guided pathway or a relevant legal resource. We also envision using the chatbot as a legal information tool. Our Steps content is very vast and there's a lot of articles, but the chatbot could be one way in terms of consolidating all of the plain language legal information and helping users understand their rights and options when they do have a question. In terms of thinking of the design principles, we design all of our software with core principles such as optionality, utility, accessibility, and safety. In terms of the chatbot, we want the chatbot to come to the user's point of friction when they need it, but we don't want to force anyone to use a chatbot if they don't want to engage with it, so it's completely optional. In terms of utility, we're trying to address all of the issues that our users encounter, such as technical support issues, legal questions, and we also want to provide a way for them to connect to our support team if needed. It's also a very accessible tool. It's available on tablet, on desktop, as well as mobile, and it uses language that we take from our CLEO House Style Guide, which creates a very accessible plain language to help users understand their rights. It also is designed with safety in mind, so we've added a ton of security measures such as Cloudflare for web verification. Whenever users use it, it checks to see that the traffic is legitimate, that protects the users, and as well for complex cases or cases where users are sharing sensitive information, it escalates the user's inquiry to our support team. So how do we build the chatbot is we used a RAG model. So this means retrieval augmented generation. As opposed to other models out there, if you go on chatgpt.com, this means that our chatbot is built and sources its knowledge from a custom database that we've added information to. So it doesn't scrape from the World Wide Web and it doesn't resource anything outside of its intended scope. So we've built a daily web scraper that takes from our vast sources of knowledge, and that includes our Steps to Justice website, it includes our CLEO website, and as we mentioned, there's thousands of articles there with really good stuff. So we feed all of this into the chatbot as part of its legal knowledge. For the other aspect, because we want this to help guided pathways users, we've written custom FAQ articles on tech support topics, and we've also added it into a separate database hosted in Contentful. So in terms of the overall tech stack, this is just a snapshot of what it looks like today. With our AI setup, we've experimented with several models of ChatGPT's from OpenAI ChatGPT's models. Right now it's using 5.4. We test it mostly on 4.1. We have all of the chat logs saved in Langfuse, which is an observability platform that lets us monitor the chat logs and lets us see everything in real time as it's happening with the users. The CLEO knowledge base is sourced from these two databases I mentioned on the previous slide, and we mostly use a web scraper as well as Contentful to populate its knowledge. So the chatbot prototype looks like this today, and this is currently on a demo site. We will launch it and it will look, I think, pretty much the same, but yeah, that's gives you a flavor of what it looks like today. In terms of Langfuse, this is our observability platform. These are engineering platform logs that we see every time someone has a chat question. Everything is recorded in real time, so we can have a live human included in the loop to review every single Q&A. This is Contentful, and this is our database where we've hosted our custom how-to articles. So all of the technical knowledge that we have on our support team has been compressed into this database over here. And in terms of where we want to launch the chatbot, we want to launch it within our guided pathways to support users as they fill out the court forms. And we also want to launch it on our Steps to Justice website. So at any given time, the users can access additional help should they need it. So An important question is, how do we know this all works? We've created a testing program which involves McGill University collaborating with us to have their law students assess our chatbot responses over the semester in order to really drill down into what's working and why. So in terms of testing strategy, for the metrics, we primarily score on risk and utility. High risk means that the chatbot's answer could cause harm if relied on, so it gives wrong legal information, unsafe guidance. It could have a privacy risk or other issues that we consider high risk. Medium risk means that it could plausibly mislead or confuse users. Low risk means it's unlikely to cause harm if relied on. In terms of high utility, this means the chatbot did its job to clearly answer the question or resolve user issues so that the user can continue forward. In terms of medium utility, this means that the chatbot partially answers questions. Some parts may be unclear, missing, or irrelevant, but overall the answer is still usable. And low utility means that the chatbot didn't answer the question, is too vague, incorrect, or misleading. So in terms of initial testing for round 0, we didn't go live with a McGill cohort. We did a lot of internal testing on our staff team to make sure that we could have a stable working version of the chatbot before we opened it up to systemic testing. So here's where we played with the prompt, we played with the database, we shifted some files to make sure that the knowledge was complete. And here the goal was just to explore the parameters of the chatbot. When we opened it up, here's where McGill collaborated with us in their cyber justice lab and the McGill cohort of law students in order to do rigorous legal analysis on the chatbot outputs. So for round 1, we defined a broad test suite that covered all of the legal topics under Steps to Justice, as well as our CLEO guided pathways programming. So the goal was to create a definitive test set. In rounds 2 to 10, we iterated with the students and had them evaluate all the chat outputs using the standardized test set in order for us to go back to the system, make changes, and then we would give them another testing round to iterate on. So this process took around 8 different rounds in order to get us to a very stable part of the chatbot where we felt pretty confident with what it was giving us back. So in one of the future rounds, oh, sorry, Erik, if you could go back. So once we got to a good snapshot of the chatbot, we wanted to confirm that the chatbot was actually stable. So the goal here in terms of testing was to make sure that the results were not a fluke and that we could reproduce the results pretty consistently. So we got the same testers to retest the same snapshot over and over to make sure that the spread was still safe and it was still accurate. And then lastly, in order to make sure that we didn't over-engineer a solution just for one specific test set, we came up with a new test set in order to stress test the chatbot against to make sure that the chatbot could handle any question that a user would give it. So at a high level, in terms of risk and utility over time, the proportion of risk over multiple test rounds remained quite consistent. But as you see in the green line over here, which signifies high utility, the proportion of utility improved quite a lot over multiple test rounds. And this is due to the iterative nature of our testing in collaboration with McGill. Every time the students came back with feedback or they annotated chatbot answers that could be improved on, we made changes in our system, such as prompt changes to the chatbot instructions. We added to our knowledge database to fill in any gaps, and we also made system bug fixes. So over time, you can see utility going up, which was a very positive signal in terms of our testing strategy. In terms of URL hallucinations over time, as you know in the industry, there will always be chances of the chatbot hallucinating because that's just the limitation of the AI models. Over time, we saw that it kind of hovered around 1 to 2% in terms of hallucination rate for ChatGPT 4.1. But as we upgraded to 5.4, this has virtually been eliminated to 0%. But this is also something that we track on our team because we want to make sure that the chatbot is not given broken links or any information that could add friction to the user's journey. This is an example of a chat improvement that came out from all of this rigorous testing. So in terms of legal framing, whenever the chatbot gave a legal answer, some of the students' feedback that we got, we've incorporated into the chatbot instructions. So every time someone has a legal question, such as, I make 100K a year, but I don't want to pay spousal support, would I Is there a way that I can pay less support? So if this is a legal question, the chatbot responds with a disclaimer at the top that says, this response provides general legal information and is not legal advice. So for this chatbot answers, we want to make sure that users understand that they're not getting personalized legal advice and what they're receiving is legal information, and that there's resources for them to look up specific resources that fit their scenario. So in terms of the body of the answer, oh, sorry, Erik. For the body of the answer, here is where the legal information gets shared with the user. This might include referrals to other resources on our steps page. This might include referrals to guided pathways, and this forms the majority of the legal answer that the users are looking for. And we've also added logic to see for certain cases, if a user's case looks complex, the chatbot also knows to refer to our Contact a Lawyer page, which gives low-cost services or pro bono services or ways for users to connect with a legal expert for their situation in Ontario. So what is the value add of using a RAG approach? Why won't someone just use a frontier model that exists today? Isn't it easier? So we did this thought exercise where we wanted to see how we compared versus what was out there, because organically a user might go on Google, they might have a question, and the first thing they do is go on ChatGPT. In order to evaluate how we were doing compared to what was out there, we ran an experiment. So we ran the CLEO chatbot versus Gemini as well as OpenAI. And at the time, CLEO's chatbot ran on GPT 4.1, but we actually had it compete versus latest models that were released by OpenAI and Gemini. So it competed against Gemini version 3 as well as ChatGPT 5.2. And we asked it the same question in all three models, and we wanted to see what it outputted. The results are pretty interesting. In terms of our evaluations of risk, where you see the green bar means low risk, CLEO's chatbot actually had the highest proportion of low risk responses compared to both ChatGPT as well as Gemini, even though it was competing against models that were way more advanced at the time. In terms of utility, same story can be found here. So in terms of the green bars, these mean high utility. So the proportion of high utility responses from CLEO's chatbot was also higher than the competitors. So overall, from this one case study where we tested around 90 test cases, we saw that the chatbot scored better on utility and risk than leading frontier models. Some of the pitfalls that led to a lower score for frontier models included frontier models had a tendency to cross into legal advice. It often would use unsolicited kind of next steps and lay it out for the user to be like, next steps for you are to go here and download this form and do this. So it veered a lot of times into legal advice by also using directive language. So compared to the CLEO chatbot, frontier models said a lot of you must or you should in terms of its framing of its answer. It also made a lot of risky assumptions and inferences, and in its sort of quest to please the user and provide an answer, it often would jump through hoops and make certain assumptions on behalf of the user when answering. It also had a very inappropriate tone at times, so it often used therapy speak. It would share emojis or be overly friendly, even when the situation did not call for it. Frontier models also had longer answers, and this led to more inaccuracies and less overall readability. Interested with the results and seeing a positive signal, we wanted to take it one step further. And so we did another case study where instead of just asking the same question out of the box to all three models, we wanted to bring the frontier models up to speed with what CLEO's chatbot knew. So we had a custom database built for CLEO. What we ended up doing was uploading that database to Gemini, uploading it to OpenAI's ChatGPT, and we also fed the chatbot instructions that CLEO had into all of these models. So everyone had an even playing field. We wanted to, again, do the same test set and see how these two models performed compared to our in-house model. Interestingly enough, even given the same context, same instructions, the frontier models had elevated levels of risk compared to our in-house model. As you can see here, yellow means medium risk and red means high risk. In terms of utility, you can see the same story. So low quality responses are denoted by orange, and then medium would be denoted by yellow. Again, we saw a higher incidence of low or medium utility for the frontier models compared to CLEO. So in conclusion, the positive results from all of our experimentation and case studies speaks not just to the quality of the information because we fed the exact same information into all three models. It also speaks to fundamentally how strong our RAG approach is. In terms of frontier model pitfalls, even when given explicit instructions, it often shared or deviated from instructions by trying to please the user, and it shared unvetted content. So Gemini did this a lot. It would share YouTube videos, and compared to Steps to Justice content, which is highly vetted, a lot of these additional resources were not vetted at all. ChatGPT also had a tendency to hallucinate URLs. Frontier model answers often oversent links, and it diluted answer clarity and directing the user elsewhere a lot of the times. Also, frontier models prompted users in a lot of follow-up questions. Sometimes these were very unsafe because it would ask users to share private information unsolicited. Frontier models often also did a thing where it would say yes, and then as you read the answer actually signifies no. So there's a lot of internally contradictory answers that frontier models shared. Frontier models also frequently went out of scope due to the length of its answers. The only part where frontier models from our testing did well was in the area of formatting. So headers, bolded text, textual hierarchy, these all worked in the favor for frontier models. So in summary, from all of our case studies conducted, our custom-built ChatGPT model on 4.1 showed reliably stronger results on risk and utility over frontier models on the market. And this was a really positive signal for us because we ran ChatGPT 4.1 versus the latest and greatest. So these were models like 1 year out. So this gives us a very good sense of our future-proofing strategy because in the AI realm, new models come out all the time. Our ability and our system the ability of our system to keep up with what's out there make sure that we remain consistently strong no matter what changes in the overall landscape. So in terms of criteria for going live, we're currently working on defining operational risk for the chatbot because we have all these good results that indicate that this is a very useful tool and it's also doing better than what's currently out there. So in order to do the last step of evaluating what can take us over the finish line, we're thinking about risk assessment. So if you think of this as a logarithmic graph, we have to understand that with AI, there will always be an inherent risk in the picture. So the idea here is to understand the nature of the risk so that we can define it and have our expectations sort of awareness of the expectations going forward. So in terms of weighing opportunity versus risk, we've done additional testing with the McGill Law students in order to actually see for things that are going wrong, like what exactly is going wrong so that we're aware of what to look out for when we go live. So in terms of categorizing risk, I guess we can call it the good, the bad, and the okay. So in a fully idealized world, the chatbot answer would be fully referenced. It would match all of its source knowledge correctly, and the answer is totally sound. There are cases where we get unreferenced answers. So this means that the chatbot is working, but we have no idea how. It's not giving answers that match the knowledge that should be powering the answer, but somehow it's getting to the right answer. So in these cases, the answer is sound. We're not sure how it got there, but there's no user harm because at the end of the day, the user is still getting accurate and reliable information. We just don't know the mechanisms that power it. So for the user's sake, we still consider this a good outcome. What is bad is that the chatbot falls into these two error categories, and sometimes we're seeing reasoning errors. Reasoning errors you can think of like a puzzle set. You have different pieces, and in terms of making sure that the answer is given to the user, the chatbot misses the connections between the pieces. So in these cases, the answer may be misconstrued, even if all the facts are there. So in these cases, we can sort of infer or see where the chatbot is getting things wrong. It's not as bad as hallucination error because hallucination error implies that the chatbot is just making things up. And this is a much more dangerous outcome. Source deficiency is where the source itself has things that can be fixed. So if the chatbot gives an answer that is not as robust, but the actual source itself was not robust, then the chatbot is doing its job. But this gives us an opportunity to fix the source at its source. So in these cases, for example, on the Steps to Justice website, perhaps there's a typo on the page, perhaps there's a certain child support table that hasn't been updated with the latest legislation. So there could be cases where a page is not up to date yet, and the chatbot will spit out that information. This is okay because this means that this is just something for our team to look into and to fix on our end, but the chatbot is doing its job by pulling that information. So in terms of our testing today, we've categorized risk in all of these categories, and through our testing, we found that 96% of our chatbot answers are falling into the good bucket. Where it's going wrong is 4% of the times it will give reasoning errors. So, if the logic behind the answer is A or B or C, and it just says A, that's incorrect. So these are subtle nuances in legal outputs that could be misconstruing information, and that's where we see the 4% sitting at. What we were really looking out for are hallucinations, and this is the chatbot making things up. Safe to say, over 700 test cases tested so far with illegal students who've combed over every single line of output, we have seen 0 hallucinations when it actually comes to the chatbot answer, which gives us a really positive signal for the amount of risk that we're seeing. 1% of the time or so, we're seeing opportunities to update our content and to make it better, which is also really helpful for our staff team and our programming, because this means that we can go back and really bolster all of our existing resources. So that's a really high-level overview of our testing today. It's still underway, but we have a lot of promising results, and we feel very positively about where the shape of the AI chatbot is going.
Thank you very much, Joanne. This brings us to our second AI project, the Narrative Assistant. And that's an AI tool that helps self-represented litigants with drafting legal narratives. And notwithstanding all the benefits of the current guided pathway approach, the decision tree tools, this work started with a problem, what I'll call our decision tree paradox. And that's the very question and answer process of decision tree tools that ensure the user provides the information that's critical for them to make their case, can also detract from the narrative flow of their stories. It's a problem we thought Gen AI can solve by improving the narratives outputted by our guided pathways, and we found that it can. And in addition to improving guided pathway outputs, early experiments found that Gen AI can help improve narratives by making suggestions by way of questions to address gaps or weaknesses. For instance, when asking for a family law restraining order, where a user generally states that there's a history of physical abuse, the narrative assistant might prompt for missing detail by asking, can you provide specific examples of these incidents? So it's this concept that's became the core of our 3-year research and development initiative, which we're in year 2, to experiment, evaluate, and then implement what works. And for more on this, you can read a progress paper we published last year. The link is here. But with that context, let me show you how the narrative assistant actually works. Now, I'm going to show you a short excerpt of a guided pathway that feeds into the narrative assistant prototype. If you want to try it yourself, the link and QR code are on this slide, and so you can follow along or watch me do the same. Okay. Give me 1 second here. So what you see in front of you is a guided pathway, A2J guided interview, and in it, it's been abridged for the purposes of demonstration, and we're going to use preloaded answers. And here you can see how the decision tree technology helps. It breaks concepts down one question at a time. There's help content embedded throughout. And I'm just going to click through very quickly. And what we're doing with this tool is guiding people with easy to answer questions where folks can say yes or no. And again, providing anything in blue, folks can click on to see a definition. What is an applicant? And we're guiding folks to provide the information necessary to make their claim. Here we're asking for a restraining order. And then we're asking about the relationship. Are there children involved? We're collecting information the court will want to see for this particular remedy. And this is an extraordinary application because it's been made without notice to the other party. It's essentially a protective order. And so we're asking folks about different types of abuse that may have taken place, and we're providing information as to what counts. And then folks can check the box if they think this situation applies to them. And then what this does is it allows, and this would take 2 to 3 hours or more for a user to complete. And then based on the answers that they've provided by way of the close-ended questions, we are then guiding them to provide their narrative. So here, describe the family violence. And we're providing information on what to include. So instructions, context, and examples. And I'm not going to open every one of these, but you'll see that there's quite a lot of information that we are guiding the user to provide, presenting information to them as they go. And here, so we're asking about the restraining order. We're asking for the kids, what orders do you want? And I'm just going to click very quickly through this to show you how we've integrated AI into this process. So a version of this tool is right now helping people, and we built this tool on the advice of the sector, organizations that are assisting people who are women and children fleeing intimate partner violence in a family context. So again here, they're being prompted to flag warning signs that the court will want to see in order to grant the remedy, and then guiding users with information to provide narrative. And so we're going to go, and then we're right at the end here. And then when we're done, in the usual course, this is a prototype, but the user would be redirected to the document assembly piece and they would see all their court forms. Here, the user's information are being sent to our narrative AI assistant. And what the AI is doing is it's taking all that information that's been collected in this very structured way, and then it's redrafting it as a narrative. And the decision tree technology is really good at guiding people to provide information thematically. And it's more challenging to do that in a way that's chronological. So we're getting all the information the user needs to provide by guiding them to provide it thematically, and then using AI to reconstitute it in a more natural narrative form. And you'll see here there are sections that are highlighted. And what we've done is we have a second process that then goes through and identifies changes the AI may have made. So inferences or other improvements. And so you'll see here there's an explanation as to what the AI has done. So the user likes it. Okay, got it. Or the user can click edit to change it. If they don't. As well, we've built in these claim suggestions. So here, I'm clicking on claim suggestion, and we're using AI to ask a question. So here, paragraph 6, would it be helpful to clarify whether Parker had your permission or legal authority to pick the children up from school and remove them from your care on January? So it's taking one particular incident that could be of great interest to the court and asking a clarifying detail that would help support make that. So it's asking questions that if answered, or if answerable and answered, would assist in strengthening the affidavit in support of this motion. So throughout the first year of our research project, as I mentioned, we're in year 2, several insights emerged, including many positive findings that provide a sense of how this particular use of Gen AI could enhance CLEO's guided pathways. Our testing shows that Gen AI can improve clarity, structure, and argumentative strength of legal narratives as compared to decision tree outputs without the AI enhancement. And the affidavits and pleadings prepared by the narrative assistant, they tended to break complex sentences into simpler forms, organize facts into a more logical flow, introducing topic sentences and point-first syntax, reducing the risk of burying the lead. It also presented arguments in a way that appeared more persuasive and coherent, adjusting tone to the process. For users of CLEO's guided pathways, these changes promise to help present their story in a way that aligns more with legal norms, increasing narrative strength, particularly in complex or highly detailed claims. And while the example I demonstrated was a family law emergency motion, we see a need to support narrative outputs in many of CLEO's guided pathways, including several that account for most of the 7,000 or so pathway visits we get each month. However, our research also required us to confront challenges inherent to Gen AI. And these are challenges that we had to develop our custom application to address. So several factors contribute to these challenges, but the most vexing was the inherent variability of human inputs. With human input variability, we're contending with errors or omissions that introduce inaccuracies that are then processed by the AI. And this puts CALI's A2J author at the center of one of our more promising findings, and that is that Gen AI performed best when it was provided with carefully crafted decision tree outputs, human inputs reliably guided with legal context. So decision trees which present public legal information as people need it, such as those CLEO creates using A2J author, reduced errors and omissions in the user's information. Another challenge is the variability of AI output. Here we're concerned not just with hallucinations, but less obvious errors and omissions, often stemming from inaccurate inferences, which could harm the user if uncorrected. So our solution has been to tightly constrain the model's role and scope through prompt refinement, sequencing it through a checklist-style prompt, and anchoring the output in a fixed structure, reducing variability. And these restraints are reinforced through redundancy, and the result was more reliability and less creativity. So more on prompts. Another performance gain came from giving the model legal reasoning context by way of the prompt. So without that context, the model appeared to optimize for clarity and fluency and misprioritize facts. But when we frame the task around why the document exists, urgency, risk, and the legal test, the model outputted legally salient details that aligned the narrative with what the courts expect. And this sort of procedural step-by-step framework appeared to narrow acceptable inferences, reduce hallucination, and produce outputs that were clearer, more persuasive, and more consistent without fine-tuning the model. But one of our biggest challenges, as with the chatbot, is that zero failure may not be achievable. And so as you saw in the demo, we have a highlight changes feature that shows users what the AI is edited or reorganized and why, so they can see what's being emphasized, review it, and decide whether or not it reflects their story. And of course, once someone finishes a CLEO guided pathway, the hard part often begins. At that point, they've generated an output, and now they must navigate the process. And so our system is designed to try and support and preserve autonomy and agency at that stage. So in that context, we developed the highlight changes feature, and it's also why we developed the suggestions framework. And so together, the highlight suggestions features help users see what's important, how legal reasoning is being signaled, and how their narrative connects to the legal test, supporting their decision-making as they move forward in the process. More about those suggestions. So these don't actually change the text. The human needs to change the text. But they're asking targeted questions based on legal checklists that help identify gaps or weak points in the narrative. And our testing has showed that this has been especially effective. For the claim checker that I showed you during the demo, we're essentially comparing an AI affidavit against a detailed checklist. So 34 pages in this case. And that pairing lets the system spot missing facts or legal elements and generate focus prompts. And it's a way of applying expert checklists at scale. A few other points. We think privacy is important. We are committed to a privacy impact assessment before we go live, and that will likely involve privacy enhancing technology between our application and the LLMs we use. The key question, how do we know it works? We've been working with law students. Our evaluation approach is comparative. We benchmark the GenAI assisted narrative against the narrative produced by the guided pathways tools today, using the same inputs without AI. We review the two side by side to see whether the GenAI version is actually clearer and more complete. It's labor intensive, but it lets us see whether GenAI is really adding value. So we conduct a line by line human review, noting the differences. We score the GenAI version as compared to the baseline or pathways output across 5 dimensions. And if you're interested in this, the full rubric is in that report I referenced earlier. And basically what we create is a trial and error loop. So we start using realistic test inputs. We test new prompts, model settings, changing one thing at a time. We assess the results, comparing the AI output against the existing guided pathways output. And finally, we calibrate how we assess so reviewers are aligned, scoring stays consistent, and that last step feeds back into the next round of testing. So each iteration improves both the prompt and how we evaluate them. We have different types of inputs that we use for testing. And our current cohort is 8 law students, and they're supported by 4 returning law students, and we meet to compare scores, discuss rationale, and this allows us to work toward integrator reliability, where all the humans are scoring on the same basis to the extent possible. Now, this is all very labor intensive, of course, and we're focusing on just a few pathways at present. So how does this work at scale? We have a research site. It enables testers to bypass the guided pathway using outputs directly. It's LangFuse. It traces every use, and it enables tracking of human scoring and scoring by the LLM. And it's this LLM scoring where the LLM uses the same rubric as the human testers. And so tracking the human scores with reasons as well. The system is enabling us to work toward a key operational requirement, which is the calibration of LLM and human scoring. And there is a lot of AI being used in our system. We have prompts for the narrative, prompts for highlighting, prompts for evaluating, prompts for the suggestions, prompts for evaluating the suggestions. And so if our current approach holds, for every guided pathway, there will be at least one set of these prompts. And this sort of gives you sort of a sense of the scale. And this is all being sort of controlled by LangFuse, is our engineering platform. And here you'll sort of see this is sort of the data flow from A2J author into our narrative assistant. LangFuse in the mauve there is managing our prompts. There's a de-identification stack which pseudonymizes sensitive information before we send it to the LLM. It comes back from the LLM, and then we present it to the user for each of those steps. This is what our LangFuse dashboard looks like. So last word, and I know we're getting close to time, but this being Cali, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the critical role for law schools in a project like this. The law school and the law student angle, the idea of investing in human evaluation for such projects will be off-putting to many because of cost. But we think the investment in human evaluation using law students is key to success in this area. And the CLEO McGill law collaboration came about naturally from past projects, but the idea of a smaller organization collaborating with a local law school could have great advantages for everyone involved if you think it through. Law students are perfect for evaluation and calibration work. In terms of key skills, the skill sets found in law students is perfectly suited for the task. They adapt real time to systems, technology, prompting, narrative structure, and detail, catch small changes that might have an impact. Their critical thinking and attention to detail are key skills. Motivation, law students are motivated by the practical impact of what they do, and they get to relate narrative facts to legal rules, a central feature of legal learning. They're also generally also keen to gain exposure to an important aspect of the justice system and legal practice, that which makes visible its limitations and failures. And we would suggest law schools have everything to gain by this kind of collaboration, be it problem-based learning. Law schools are always keen to provide students with problem-based learning and real-life legal experience opportunities. They tend to talk about it. And this is an opportunity to sort of make it happen. In terms of curriculum integration potential, we think this provides a great learning opportunity for students. Our students, and we put some comments down, have reported a very positive experience. And so I think in conclusion, I will simply say that we think there's great promise for AI and access to justice, but that decision tree tools like those created by Cali and A2J author are going to be a critical part of some processes, and law student collaboration in sort of human evaluation will also be a key part of this process. So with that, let's say thank you. And I don't know if we have, I know we started a little late, but not too late. I don't know if we have time for any questions.
Sure, we have time for questions. I'll start. I've got so the output of these, I think I know the answer from having talked to you before, but I don't remember. The output from the guided interviews is, of course, forms that get filed with a court. Have judges seen the outputs of these automated forms, and can they tell that an AI has helped the SRL, and does that cause a problem, or are they happy that these forms are easier to read or better formulated than what they might normally see from a self-represented litigant?
So we haven't had any direct dialogue with the bench in Ontario about the outputs that are presently just being produced with synthetic data using CLEO's AI narrative assistant. But there's a lot of ink being spilled about the increase in the number of AI generated pleadings and affidavits ending up in court. Of course, these are outputs that have been created without any of the guardrails that we are going to great length to put in place here, and the results have been concerning for all involved. So what we see at CLEO is that there is a need for help that is not being met, and therefore people without assistance to legal services are turning to frontier models to do this work. And what we have set out to do at CLEO is provide all the promise and assistance of AI in the tasks that we've chosen to focus on, but with more guardrails and more support, which should be a better outcome for the courts and, of course, most importantly, the folks with legal needs.
Comments, questions? Question. I'll repeat the question for the recording. What group of students, or what level are the students who are doing the review work?
So McGill Law, 3 years. So most of the students have completed first year or second year. However, we continue to have a couple of students involved who've graduated. So we recruit through the law school. We have a skills test, and the students are invited through the law school to apply to write the skills test. And then based on scoring, we offer positions for summer intensive, which is ongoing at present. And the experience from the first year is that the majority of the students who were hired for the summer, mostly on a near full-time basis, were then all too willing to work part-time during the school year.
Yeah, so I take it this is compensated work rather than course credit.
Absolutely, it is paid work. So it's flex. The students are paid for the hours they work. Most of them have been hired through McGill in partnership with CLEO, and so they submit their hours and are paid through McGill. However, a number of them have worked for CLEO directly, mostly again on a flex basis. But during the summer, the number of hours provided approaches full time.
What's the ramp up time that it takes for a student to get to be good at this stuff? In other words, is this the kind of thing that you could plug into a class on, say, legal drafting and expect the students to get much benefit out of it? Or is this something that takes a longer lead time to get proficiency?
That's a great question. A lot depends on the ambition of the of the test program, and we've it's been a stretch effort, I'll say, for CLEO last summer and this summer. But in our experience, so we're working outside the academic year. We start in the summer, and it's been 2 to 3 weeks of intensive inter-rater reliability focused testing where everyone is doing the same benchmarking during the day, meeting the next morning, and then we talk through as a group what the scoring was and why. So we just wrapped up 3 weeks of that process where we would give folks the same sort of output, or sort of pathways output, but we'll call this the AI input, and then an AI output. And they complete that benchmarking process and score. So they'll complete 3 of those, and then we'll meet the next morning and we'll talk through the scores. And then we did 1 week for family law emergency motions, 1 week on peace bond applications, and 1 week on unpaid services in a small claims court context. At the end of that, we felt pretty good about the scoring of the 8 students. It was more or less aligned. Could we have stopped at 1 week or maybe a week and a half if we just wanted to work with one use case? I think we could. In terms of, I haven't thought about how that would work if we put it into a course context. I think it could work very well, but you probably want to just use one use case, and there would have to be some homework, I think, because the actual process of doing the benchmarking, certainly at first, it's over an hour for sure, I would say, the first few times, and that would need to be completed. It'd be challenging to squeeze that all into class time. The way we've structured it as part-time, well, full-time in the summer employment and then part-time employment during the year, is that we have the benefit of many hours of work in a given day during the ramp up, which is important. And it's hard to imagine it working without the intensive work at the beginning. So hopefully that provides some helpful context. I think it could be done in a classroom context if there was an appetite to have an hour or more of homework related to each class process, so that people would return to the class in a position to discuss the scoring.
Thank you. Erik, Joanne, thank you so much for this. I even learned things, which I always do, listening to you, and really appreciate you coming on and talking about this.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We're very grateful for all that Callie does. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye for now.
Bye now.